Hello and welcome to this episode of Roundtable Talks with CGTN. I'm Zheng Chunying, live in Beijing. This year marks the 80th anniversary of the United Nations, a milestone to reflect on its past and to look ahead into the future of global governance. And China, as one of the founding members of the UN, has long been an advocate for multilateralism. And that is a principle resonating not only with large economies, but also with small states, including those in the Caribbean, whose voices are getting more and more vital in shaping a fair and more inclusive global order. So today we're going to bring all these perspectives together to get a glimpse of the UN at 80 means for all of us, and more importantly, how China-Caribbean cooperation can help chart the course in the decades ahead. So now let me bring in my guest, Ms. Kay Marie Fletcher, a journalist from The Guardian Media Limited at Trinidad and Tobago. And also we have Mr. Marlon Samuels, a journalist from Public Broadcasting Cooperation in Jamaica. Great to have you with us. So let me start with a broad question. Looking back at over 80 years, how has the UN system of governance influenced your country?
Okay, well, good morning. Thank you so much for having us here today. I am Kay Marie Fletcher, representing Trinidad and Tobago, here with my Caribbean colleague. We're quite pleased to be here to share our voices as small nations representing the Caribbean. When we think of the United Nations, right, I think about a system, a table, right, where all of these global powerhouses could come together, but not just big countries like China, for example, but small states like ourselves. We can come and we can have a voice as well. So when I think of the United Nations, I think about that collective system where all of these countries come together and tackle cross-border concerns, whether it's economic concerns, climate concerns, pandemics. The United Nations is there to tackle all of these issues. 80 years passed, and now we're looking for the next 80. We're quite interested to see what is going to happen next.
Yeah.
Okay.
Over the past 8 years, the UN has played a vital role in fostering international cooperation. For example, in Jamaica, Jamaica has benefited from the UN development programs that support infrastructure and social programs. So today, amid challenges like rising nationalism, it is important to reform global institutions to better include small states like Jamaica, and to tackle things as what Kay Marie says, climate change, amid strengthen multilateral efforts. Yeah.
So you just mentioned many aspects, and let's delve into them one by one. So global governance is not just about political decision making, but also extends to the cooperation among countries economically. So on that front, I know that China is Jamaica's largest trading partner, and Chinese companies have invested hugely in areas like infrastructure, like energy, and tourism. How do you see the economic partnership influencing Jamaica's development path and its role in the global economy?
All right, in Jamaica, China's involvement includes investments like the North to South Highway and the Western Regional Children's Hospital, which exemplifies China's role in developing vital infrastructure and health in Jamaica. These projects enhance Jamaica's economic development and improve public services under the Belt and Road Initiative. Right? Jamaica has opportunities to collaborate further on port upgrades, such as expanding Kingston's port, which is happening to boost trade and regional logistics. These partnerships open new markets and create jobs, contributing to Jamaica's growth and increased integration into global supply chains. So that's very...
And also, we've witnessed growing cooperation economically, especially between China and Trinidad and Tobago, right?
Yes, similarly. I mean, he would have mentioned the port, for example, right? When you think of China and Trinidad and Tobago, China is one of our largest trade partners.
Yes.
So in terms of the port, of course, specifically for imports, but for exports as well, right? So definitely we have maintained diplomatic relations for over 50 years, I think since 1974, for example. And over the years, we would have had a lot of trade done. I think within the last 2 years, between 2023 to 2024, we would have exuded $1 billion in terms of our trade partnership with China. So just looking at that, we can see that small nations play a major part in terms of partnerships with China, in terms of trade, but not just trade, in terms of infrastructure. A lot of Chinese companies would are responsible for the constructions of things such as highways in my country, hospitals, airports in my country. So China does a lot of business in Trinidad and Tobago in terms of that. We are quite grateful for that. We recently opened the central block of the Port of Spain General Hospital. That's a large hospital in the capital of our country. It's quite important to have a hospital in your capital, you know, in terms of infrastructure, or roads, interchanges. All of these things help develop our nation, and we are quite grateful for that.
Yeah, even like in Jamaica, the Western Regional Children's Hospital is like the biggest and the most equipped hospital in our country, and we are so grateful for it, because not only it features the overall aspect of wellness, especially for children, because you know children are the future. I mean, in our Kingston, the capital, right? Majority of the businesses are Chinese owned.
Oh.
Majority, like even the wares that people sell on the roads and stuff like that were imported from China. So, you know, much of the clothes that we wear there, the plates that we eat out of, much of the things that we do, much of the cars that we drive is, you know, imported.
So how do local people perceive Chinese businesses in Jamaica?
Yeah, we're totally grateful. As I said before, much of the commerce thrives on what is imported from China. You know, so shoes that we wear, the cars that we drive, you're talking about, as I said before, the plate, the cups, every single thing that we depend on comes from China. So business is thriving there, and we are very grateful for the Chinese people.
There's a saying, everything is made in China.
And
we see it in small nations because there's a huge trade business, as I mentioned. So we would import a lot of things from China. You would have mentioned cars, for example. Of course, vehicles we would import from China. So China does a lot of business with our small nations.
So as we just talked about, global economic cooperation is definitely one of the major pillars of global governance. But at the same time, I think the global influence sometimes comes from geography and, you know, strategic positioning. And we know that as a maritime hub in Caribbean, Trinidad Tobago plays a very strategic role in regional trade. And China's Belt and Road initiatives also includes port and logistics investment worldwide, as we just mentioned. So do you see opportunities for Trinidad and Tobago to partner with China in this area? And how might that partnership influence the role of your country or your region in the global supply chain?
Most definitely. You see, Trinidad and Tobago is uniquely positioned in the crossroads between South America and the Caribbean. So exactly where we're located, it's an ideal hub in terms of maritime. And that's why earlier on I would have mentioned our ports. You know, I see this as an opportunity for China and Trinidad and Tobago to collaborate in terms of modernization for our port, because that's a perfect way where we can get imports and exports, or not just for Trinidad and Tobago, but to connect us with our other Caribbean islands, because we are a member of CARICOM. So together we are one Caribbean region, one CARICOM family. And when you do business with Trinidad and Tobago, it allows you easy access to do business with other Caribbean islands as well. And as I mentioned, where we're located, in the crossroads between Caribbean and South America, we are right next to Venezuela and other Latin American countries. So when China does business with Trinidad and Tobago, yes, you do business with Trinidad and Tobago, yes, you do business with the English-speaking Caribbean, but there's also a window of opportunity to grow a closer connection with that South-South region to do business with those Latin American countries as well.
And looking ahead, do you see more opportunities for economic collaboration between China and Jamaica?
Yeah, I do, because I mean, as you say, it's Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica. We are at central points in the Caribbean, and much of what, as I said before, much of what we thrive on are things that are Chinese made, Chinese businesses, Chinese, almost everything. much of what we do is very important to, to facilitate growth going forward. And these are things we are looking forward to and thrive on. So yes, of course.
And as we just talked about, and there are probably plenty of opportunities in trade and logistics between China and Trinidad and Tobago in the future. But I think this is crucial. Economic cooperation is crucial, but at the same time, diplomacy and international voices are also very important in global governance. And talking about that, we know that Jamaica has long been active in international diplomacy, from advocating for interests of small island states to contributing to global debates on trade and development. So how do you see Jamaica's role in ensuring that the voices of smaller nations are heard in global stage?
Okay, so Jamaica can strengthen its diplomatic influence by participating in groups like CARICOM and advocating for reforms within the UN and those places to give small nations more voting power. Building coalitions with other small states increases their collective voice on issues like climate change and trade fairness. So, yes, for example, Jamaica's engagement in climate change negotiations supported by its alliance with Pacific Islands nations, helps amplify its concerns about rising sea levels and extreme weather impacts. So, yes, participating more in CARICOM and those, smaller groups will give us a better voice.
And what about Trinidad and Tobago?
So as he brought up that point, I think of multilateralism. I think that is quite important. It's important for us to work together. And when we think of global governance, I think this is an opportunity moving forward for our small nations, for our voices to be amplified, to know that these small nations, these developing countries, we have a voice, we have similar concerns and different concerns than larger nations. But this is the part where our voices need to be amplified, and that's where the UN comes in. Because as I mentioned at the start, it's an opportunity where our small nations could get to voice our concerns, we could defend our diplomacy and our sovereignty, but we could also we have shared interests with other countries, and there we could discuss things. And multilateralism is so important because when we come together, that's when we could fight issues that we may have, as a globe. Look at the geopolitical structure that we are in at this present time. Whether we are fighting pandemics, whether we are fighting climate change, whether we are fighting different type of wars and conflicts, multilateralism is so important because our small nations can work together with larger countries to fight these concerns together.
And as China, advocate multilateralism, we know that the United States recently has, shifting to unilateralism. There are voices shifting unilateralism. What do you make of that? And how can small states like Caribbean nations use the platform like the United Nations or other global governance mechanism to amplify your voices in the future?
Well, as you mentioned, the United States. Now, because of where our Caribbean islands are located, we form partnerships and close relations with countries, for example, the United States, because of geography, right?
Yes.
We are very close to the United States as compared to China, over 8,000, almost 9,000 miles away. We took almost a day or a day and a half to get to China. So if we just look at geography, of course, we would have closer relations with countries like the United States. However, our countries remain neutral in terms of who do we choose to align with. We don't ever say, okay, our country aligns with China, our countries align with the United States or anything like that. We are very neutral in terms of that. However, we do believe that working together with whoever is the country that wants to put their hand out and work together with us, we as Caribbean countries, we want to work together with these nations to make the world a better place, because that's the goal, right?
The goal,
as the United Nations, the goal is to make a world a better place in terms of ending poverty, in terms of ending hunger strikes and wars and all of these things. So the United Nations and the forum we know right now is taking place in the United States, the UN forum. These are opportunities where we get to go and voice our concerns and say, Trinidad and Tobago, like Jamaica, like CARICOM and the Caribbean as a whole, we want to work together with these countries. We share your interests and we think together we'll be stronger. And I think that tagline there, just stronger together is what is most important to develop the world.
I feel the same way, that working together, which is why our voice is CARICOM. So much of what we do it together, and we work through CARICOM. And I think much of the CARICOM states and Latin America, they work with China and other things. So
I
think we're on our way.
Yeah, and of course, the influences is not only measured in politics or economy, it also flows through people-to-people exchanges, right?
Yes,
and over the past few years, we've witnessed growing people-to-people exchanges, cultural exchanges between China and Caribbean nations. Tell us more about that, and how has these exchanges influenced your lives?
All right, so like for example, a major one was in 2008 when Usain Bolt was in the Birdnest Stadium. I think it was built for that reason. Like culturally, right, Jamaica's famous reggae music and athletic excellence, as I said before, such as Usain, serve as cultural bridges, like, you know, China's establishment of Confucius Institutes in our country, which my daughter I have a daughter, she's 16. She just joined the institute to learn Mandarin, and she sent me her books that she bought yesterday. I was telling you about it, right?
How does she like Mandarin?
Well,
it's difficult to pick up?
It's like any language is difficult at first, but over a period of time. So I've been here for the last 5 weeks.
Me too, picking up a few things.
Picking up a few things. Yeah, so basically, like the Confucius Institute, located at the university, promotes Chinese language learning and cultural understanding. Scholarships for Jamaican students, like we have met a few of them, right? And people from other Latin America states. So, you know, stuff like that will promote a closer relationship. As I was speaking to Jeremy, he's in social media, right? I was telling him that I would advocate for more Chinese nationals to send their children to Jamaica because you learn English quicker, right? Because when you're in the setting with people that speaks the same language,
so you immerse yourself in that culture.
So while I was in high school, I had this Chinese friend. He came directly from China. And in 2 years, he had a distinction in English. So it's those things will help to promote more exchanges, you know, like sending your child to Jamaica or Trinidad for like a year or two, you know, you'll pick up on these things quicker. So, you know, we're on our way with the exchanges, and it's fun.
What about Trinidad?
So I definitely believe that, you see, because cultural exchange is quite important. So in terms of institutes for learning, that is something that we have in our country as well. We work together.
Confucius Institute as
yes,
well.
exactly. It's quite interesting. A lot of people have grabbed onto it as well. So promoting more scholarships in terms of that would be very important. Yes. But also in terms of culture, when you think of the Caribbean, you definitely think of culture. You would have mentioned reggae music in Jamaica, in Trinidad and Tobago. We are synonymous for our carnival. I'm not too sure if you ever heard of it. Yes, our carnival.
Definitely.
That is something that definitely we want to take to the world. And there are a lot of persons from China actually would come to Trinidad to experience our carnival because it is definitely an experience. So in terms of people-to-people exchange, that is something that we want to continue to promote with China. Our different foods, because I know in terms of our exports, we would export different types of our rums, because we have Angostura rums and bitters and our spices. These are different things that would promote cultural exchange and people-to-people exchange. And I think we are looking forward to maybe some visa-free travel travel opportunities, because these are the things that would connect countries in terms of tourism. So as Caribbean nationals, we are looking forward to see, well, what's next for our region and China to see some
the cooperation
visa-free travel moving forward.
So like myself and my daughter, we have been following the Chinese culture for years. So when I take my daughter out for dinner, right, and there's a choice between other cuisines, she just always go for the Chinese.
Wow.
Yeah, so, you know, stuff like that, you have a lot of...
Why does she like Chinese food?
Huh?
What specific
about it?
Chinese food does she like?
She loves sweet and sour chicken.
Oh, sweet and sour chicken.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's like one of the favorites in Jamaica. So.
Oh.
Similarly,
Yeah.
Trinidad.
And similarly, I've met a lot of Chinese in Jamaica, like those building the North-South Highway. Because I recently did an interview with the manager that's building the second leg of the North-South Highway. Because presently I'm the director of photography on a documentary, like 100 years of Chinese in Jamaica, right? So we were talking about. I was speaking to the gentleman, and he said his favorite food in Jamaica is the jerk chicken, which is one of the favorites in the Caribbean. So,
So as you just mentioned, through films, through music, art, and even cuisine, people in Caribbean nations are getting more and more familiar with Chinese culture.
Yes, definitely.
And Chinese people are also getting more familiar with Caribbean culture as well. So how do you see the significance of promoting people-to-people exchanges when it comes to strengthening the understanding of global governance?
Yeah. I think it's quite important because when we work together, it's important for to understand each other, right? The more we speak to each other right now on this round table, the more we get to understand each other. Yes. So, and it's similarly when we go on these tables, our leaders are representing our countries, but many times when you think of global governance, it's quite distant from the population. You know, the United Nations could be having conversations, and the population back home are not quite aware of what's going on, right? So I think when we have these people-to-people exchanges and these cultural exchanges and we get to understand our cultures, there's more respect for it, I think that will help us to work better with each other and strengthening our partnerships will make global governance what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, these exchanges build mutual respect and create a foundation for cooperation in global governance, as my colleague just said.
That lays a solid foundation for more cooperation, politically and economically
as well.
Yeah, so, you know, it fosters a shared commitment to addressing global challenges. So I think it's important because before I came on this, the CIPCC, I wasn't even thinking, even though I'm in media, I wasn't even thinking about any of those things. But now my perspective has sharpened, and I'm now looking at these things, how important they are to other nations.
Everything is getting real.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because like in journalism, I've never taken a look at politics. I've only looked at climate change in terms of politics, but not, you know, that sharp edge of politics and looking at how other nations are being treated. But now, since I've been here, I'm in sharp focus about how other nations feel about other things that are being done to them. Like, for example, it was when I came here, I've learned about the Chinese resistance against Japanese invasion. I've never thought about that, and I've done a short piece on it, and I've looked at, you know, everything collectively.
I think you'll get more understanding if you...
And that's what those cultural exchanges are about.
Yes, that's why we're here, maybe.
Exactly.
Yes, and I'm really thrilled to know that you're an expertise in climate change. So now let's move on to the next topic. We know that we talked so much about cultural exchanges and economic cooperations, and they're vital. But climate change remains the pressing critical challenge, especially for small states in Caribbean nations. So tell us, how do you think these challenges could be addressed through global governance?
Okay. Well, I know China has shown a key interest in our small nations in terms of climate change. You see, where we are located, we're quite vulnerable in terms of this climate crisis, which I know is affecting everyone around the world, right? But we're at a time where more needs to be done. So as Caribbean nations, we would like to see more done, one in terms of awareness, but also in terms of funding, because quite frankly, that's what is needed. That's very important in terms of our preparedness for disasters, right? So I think definitely in terms of funding, that's something that's definitely a key factor to treat and to tackle this climate crisis that we're facing right now.
So China has contributed to climate change resilience in the Caribbean through renewable energy projects such as solar power installations in Jamaica and technical support for coastal protection. For example, the Chinese has funded solar energy projects in Jamaica, which helps to reduce reliance on fossil fuels. However, as K. Marie stated before, more needs to be done, such as increased funding, technology transfer, and capacity building is necessary to help small states like Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica, to protect against hurricanes and other climate impacts. Strengthening partnership ensures these actions are met with, and these nations can develop sustainably and resilient infrastructure to help with climate resilience methods.
And just being included in the conversation, right? Having our small nations, our voices, being part of the conversations when tackling climate change is important, because that's how we get to work together when you hear our side of things, and to know that we are small nations, but our voices are just as important and needed in this climate crisis conversation as well.
Because it totally helps with economic development, since we depend so much on China. And I mean, it's a balanced exchange, because commerce is important and climate change affects everything.
And infrastructure as well, because it's all about preparedness as well, right? And we would have mentioned in terms of infrastructure how China works well with our countries, and I just think more development and infrastructure as well would help that climate change issue.
But climate change now remains a challenge, but I think in the future it might generate more opportunities as well.
Yeah, definitely, I think so.
Yes.
I mean, you can't come to China and not talk about technology as well. When we're thinking about exchanges and how our islands can benefit, right? We have seen so much. We have seen robots do so many things, from these smart toilets, smart vacuums, to robots dancing, playing instruments. We've seen it all. We are quite fascinated by these things. And it's very interesting to see how AI powers and drives everyday life in China. I mean, it's quite common for you right now, but for us it's not so much. So I think definitely in terms of technology, in terms of AI, bringing that back to the Caribbean is something that definitely will help our countries develop and advance more in terms of technology, integrating AI in our schools, in healthcare. All of those things will help us as developing nations as well.
Yeah, especially, we've been talking about, so we did an interview yesterday, right? It was yesterday? Day before yesterday, and they asked us what we would take back to our countries. And I said the transportation, because...
Transportation.
Yes.
The high-speed train?
Yes, I would.
The bullet
Well,
train
probably
recently.
not as fast, but,
Similar.
Similar. Even,
speed, yes.
even the metro we would take back to our country, because it's truly needed. And it would make commerce increase far more, because there are so many things
Very
that
efficient.
Yes, it's just very efficient.
And also we were talking about how when going through the metro, some people use their phones, they never use,
technology is everywhere.
or
and I
they
think
use
that
their
would
phone to
definitely-
purchase. So,
So a lot more to expect.
Yes, a lot more to expect, a lot more closer
in these
collaboration.
areas, we can really collaborate, like with transportation and technology. It will be fitting for us.
But at the same time, we know that China has long been, as I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, China has long been an advocate for multilateralism, and it has initiated the global South-South cooperation mechanism. So how do you think the South-South cooperation framework can help small developing states like yours gain more influence in international institutions, such as the United Nations?
Well, I would have mentioned South-South collaboration in terms of maritime, because of where we are located. So having that opportunity to connect us closer. You think of Caribbean, you think of Latin America as well. So I think when China thinks of doing business with these Latin American countries, it's important as well to include these Caribbean countries in it as well. Yeah, so I think in terms of trade, maritime trade, to connect us, that's something we can definitely work with.
Yeah, the South Cooperation empowers nations like Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago by enabling them to advocate collectively in international institutions like, as we said before, the UN. For instance, Jamaica's collaboration with other Caribbean nations and China through initiatives like joint development projects and technical exchanges enhances their influence. China's Belt and Road projects in the region and Jamaica's participation in global forums exemplify how these partnerships help smaller developing nations like Jamaica and Trinidad. So, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Nations, we will gain more voices like, you know.
It's all about inclusivity.
Yes.
Just being included in the conversations and working together with Latin American countries and Caribbean nations. I think that's quite important. And that is what will strengthen global governance and multilateralism.
Yes, and one key factor of achieving that goal is to boost partnership, cooperation. We need more cooperation, we need more dialogues, we need more partnerships across countries, across cultures, to make global governance more representative, more efficient, you know, and better prepared to meet the challenges for the years to come.
Yes.
All right, thanks so much for your insights, your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us.
All right, and that would do it for this session of Roundtable Talk with CGTN. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.